Yeah, one man, one mission, and message that God has chosen to be about the Father's business. Welcome to Bishop Presents Kingdom Builders. I'm your host, Aaron Williams, behind the Ivory Kingdom Builders microphone. Let's go forth with grace, love, and fire. As always, thank you for listening to Bishop Presents Kingdom Builders. Wow. So now, well, I shouldn't say now because again, never shocked, never surprised what's going on in this society. But now we have white people enjoying, white folks, calling police on people, using 911 to call the police. So here's my question. Here's what's on my heart and on my mind. When did the police become your personal security detail? Whenever you, I shouldn't even use the word offended, or whenever you so-called feel uncomfortable because black people are doing things that people do. Because black people are in the same space that you are, the same public place that you are, you have the audacity, the gall to call the police using 911. I mean, are we serious? So when your black skin or when your brown skin is used as a weapon, you don't have to worry about having a 9mm or AR-15. Your weapon, you're armed and dangerous from birth. Your black skin means you're considered armed and dangerous. I mean, at some point, when are we going to start charging these people with crimes for using 911, using an emergency system to call the police when you so-called uncomfortable or when you so-called don't understand what's going on? So you're scared. You're full of fear. You don't know what's going on, so you call the police. It's just a same. It's just a shame that your skin is your sin. Your skin is a problem. Your skin is causing people to use a government emergency system to call the police because they are so-called scared. They're so-called, uncomfortable because of what's going on. The first thing we got to understand and we got to realize that I'm so bored with so many white people and so many people that's not of color talking about they're tired of racism. You don't have to keep reminding them about racism. You don't have to keep reminding them that you're black or that racism exists. Well, I can't tell. It seems like in our racist and sex society, you know, we have a president, a white man can openly incite violence, openly be racist, openly be sexist, openly be anything he wanted to be, openly disparage people with disability, openly disparage women, call people everything, call NFL players SOBs, openly say and do anything that we want to do. And now we wonder why white people feel emboldened to just openly do what they want to do because they are following their leader. They're following what they believe they have a right to do, and so when you sit up and talking about you're tired of talking about racist thing, you're tired of racism. Well, this country was built on racism. This country was built on what it is, and you have a president who emboldens you to say what he wants, do what he wants, act what he done, and you had the audacity, we had the audacity to put him in office. So at some point we got to understand that this is not us talking about it. This is us living it. And I'll never apologize for upholding the oppressed. I'll never apologize for standing for the least of these among us. And I'll never apologize for people being harassed, by people who are so-called uncomfortable because they're at a place doing what I call menticide. Not suicide, menticides. And the menticide occurs when you willingly think or act out somebody else's interpretation of reality to their benefit and against your own survival. It's not my duty not to be black. It is a accident of my birth. It is when I was born. So I'm not gonna make you feel good because you have a problem with because you was taught racism. You live in a white supremacist society. You have a white president that you're emboldened. I'm not going to commit menticide and mentally make you feel better and make you feel comfortable because you don't want to deal with what I who I am. It is not the duty of the brutalized to comfort the bystanders. And so many of us bystanders, we watching injustice happen, we watching things happening, and we saying, well, that's the way it is, or we need to conform to this or that. And no, it's cowardice. It's cowardice. It's time for us to quit being silent. It's time for us to quit being looking the other way because people are being abused and people are being targeted simply because they're at a pool, simply because they're doing the things that people are supposed to do, live their lives, doing what they should be doing. So we will never apologize for that, and we'll never apologize for being who we are. And so you are a target if you're sitting while black. You're a target if you're complying while black. You're a target if you're nonviolent while black. It's just the fact of the matter. It doesn't matter if you're black. Just being black is enough. And that is America. There's something wrong in America when it regulates black skins more than an AR-15. There's something wrong in America when we have a problem with. When I have no problem calling the police when we see black people at a pool or sitting around, but nobody calls the police when they see a white man with a gun at a school or when AR-15. Nobody is worried about the NRA and all these weapons and all these the Second Amendment rights. Nobody cares about these arsenals that people are building, these compounds that these groups have, these white supremacist groups. Nobody's caring then, but all of a sudden when you see a black person enjoying their freedoms, when you see a black person just sitting at a restaurant, when you see a black person just doing the things that they should be doing with no harassment, no abuse, not violating the law, their skin is their sin, their black skins is the problem. So you want to regulate that. You always want to control that. But this is our history. Since the founding of this country, we've always been blacks. Has always been controlled. Our bodies have always been controlled. Our bodies have always been in the control of another person. So. You can take your arguments that you're tired of this and tired of this, but we're tired of it too, and we'll never sit back and just allow you to control our bodies at your whims, to control our thoughts at your whims. We're going to do what we want to do. We're going to live how we want to live under God because God is our supreme and our ultimate source of our strength and our freedom. Our freedom is derived from God. Our freedom is not derived from some civil rights bill. Thank God for it. It was good, but we had freedom before the civil rights bill. Our freedom and our freedom to do the things we want to do in peaceful and loving way is derived from the Creator. It's derived from the kingdom of God. It's derived from the person who created us. So therefore, we will not be subject to any type of cruelty. We will not be subject to any unjust treatment. We will not subject ourselves to be used and to be violated simply because somebody else is uncomfortable because the country wants them to be comfortable. This country was founded by slave owners who wanted to be free. This country was founded by slave owners who wanted to be free. And now, over 200 plus years later, you have a tradition of people who still want to oppress people who just simply wants to be free, which is supposed to be the founding principle of this country. But it's only for certain people. But we will not be controlled. We will not be intimidated. We will stand up for our God-given rights, our kingdom-given rights, not some civil rights that you give me, not some civil rights from a rogue state, not some civil rights from somebody that that's got their own idea of what my rights should be, but our rights derived from God. Because when you can sit around when you have a president who presents this make America great again agenda. When I see the make America great again hat, it's nothing. You might well just put on a white hood. You might well put on a swastika, because that's what it means. It's nothing but a Klan rally. It's nothing but a call for white nationalism. It's nothing but a call for white supremacy. It's nothing but a call for oppression. It's nothing but a call for abuse. It's nothing but a call for making America great. How? What does that mean? So therefore, that's what's on my heart. That's what's on my mind. We will stand up for ourselves. We will stand up for justice. And we will stand up as children of God. Bishop Presents Kingdom Builders continues right after this. You don't want to go away. Next on Bishop Presents Kingdom Builders, my conversation, my interview with my sister, my friend, my colleague, Monica Nichols. She shares her story. She shares her testimony and her life experiences. Truly a great woman of God, a Kingdom Builders. Stay with us. She's coming up next. All right, I'm here with my good friend, beyond friend, my sister, somebody I love, colleague, Monica Nichols. So I'm excited about this interview. It's been, we went through a lot together, been through a lot together as friends on a personal level and professional level. But we're going to start out with your childhood. So tell the audience where you're from, your childhood, what it was like growing up here in San Antonio, and how influential figures in your life growing up.
Okay, well, I am born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. My mother, she is American of Mexican descent, and my father is an American of African descent. Both my parents, my mom met my father actually in Waukegan in North Chicago, where she was attending nursing school. And when she decided that she wanted to have babies, she told him, hey, she wanted to raise a family in San Antonio, Texas. It's too cold in Chicago. She wasn't going to be pregnant, doing all those things, shoveling snow, getting up early, doing all those things. She wanted to be close to her family. All my mom's family is from San Antonio. Okay. So she basically said, you either stay here or you come with me. And well, obviously my dad said he's coming to San Antonio.
Wise decision.
Yes, wise decision. My dad actually is quoted saying that Texas is God's country. Uh-oh. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So Chi-Town, he always represents a Chicago, but that's how he feels. Well, anyways, obviously, My parents actually started older. They're older when they decided to started having children. My mom was 31 when she had me. Now today, you can have babies whenever, but she was 31, and my dad was well into his 50s. There's a big age difference. My dad is 85 and my mom's 66, I believe. So there's a big age difference between them, and well, anyhow, so I was their firstborn. I also have a younger sister, Annalisa, and I have 3 older brothers from a previous marriage that my dad had. Right. And it was interesting growing up in San Antonio. To be very honest, I felt like I grew up in a bubble, in that race was not a topic in our home. Believe it or not, I was never told, it was never discussed, or I was never told, hey, Monica, you're Mexican and you're black. I was just Monica. And I was just taught to be a good person. And my mom would always tell me all the time, if you're ugly on the inside, then you're ugly on the outside. And that's all she really discussed as far as being a person. The foundation for sure was, and the expectation was that there is a belief in God, and to have that practice. So we did grow up in the church. That foundation, I would have to say, was rooted with my grandmother, Hortensia Sanchez, who has passed. She was a single parent of 6 children, and she just made it work. But even as a small child, I could tell that her root came from God. And she instilled that in her kids, and especially us. She was our only babysitter. Our grandmother was the only person that was allowed to babysit us. And we attended school on the south side. I went to Gravener Elementary, even though I always lived on this side of town, on the northeast side of town. But I grew up on the south and west side of town. And my grandmother never knew how to drive, so she always walked everywhere we went. We had to walk, whether it was to the grocery store, the library, school. We had to do it walking. I remember we could not leave the house without an umbrella, sunscreen, and a sun hat. I remember plenty of times where, I don't know if you remember those long needles. She used to pin us. Yeah. Well, I used to get picked. Come on, grab it and play. Mm-hmm. She wanted to make sure that sucker was in on our head. Mm-hmm. She was big on protecting us from the sun. We had to have water, the whole 9. Everybody knew us because my grandmother had us, and she had her. She always had a stroller because my cousins were younger, so there was always a baby, obviously. And we were just walking. We were walking whether it was raining, whether it was extremely hot outside. And on those walks, she really instilled in us her faith. And so much so that she instilled it in us in action, in that my grandmother cleaned the church. Mm-hmm. She get paid for it. Not that you have to be paid for it, but that was just her service. Right. And so guess what? We cleaned in the church too. Mm-hmm. We didn't have an option. There was no negotiating with my grandma.
Well, the options were bad. So yeah. you had an option, but it wasn't too beneficial.
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
Not
And when I mean cleaning the church, I mean we cleaning the church. This was not, I'm talking about, the whole vacuuming, the sweeping, the dusting, the organizing of things, cleaning the restrooms, you name it. Even the care of the outside of it. She didn't cut the grass. They had someone to do that. But it didn't matter. She took pride in it. It didn't matter how long it took. We were going to do it. And my grandmother always made sure that we did it with a positive spirit.
Cheerful spirit.
That's right. You ain't going to come in there acting crazy. And you're not going to come in there whining. I always recall excuse me if I get a little emotional because I remember these are good memories of my grandmother, but that she's instilled in us is that, it is a practice that anytime you are going up to the altar, you are to bow and make the sign of the cross out of respect, because the altar to many is I wouldn't say holy ground. It's just respected in that you take care, and when you put the cross up there, when you take communion, a lot of things with preaching, a lot of things happen across that altar and that pulpit. So you're trying to show respect before stepping up onto the altar. So my grandmother, when we were young, we were never allowed to clean the altar. She would do that part, and then as we got older, we could. But my grandmother would always, even in her cleaning, even when nobody was watching, she always was respectful. Here we are, little children. That's the only one in the church, and she still would bow, make the sign of the cross, step up, clean, come off, turn around, bow. She was always being respectful of God, even when no one was watching. Yeah. And I remember that fervently. Another thing about my grandmother, one thing that I wish I was better at, to be honest, is that the first thing that my grandmother would do when she would wake up was she would pray. Well, my grandmother had like a trundle bed, so she used the rollout bed. She was short, so she slept on the rollout bed because it was closest to the floor. And I'm talking about knees on the floor. I mean, her body was practically on the floor too, because it's a rollout bed. And let me tell you, you do not disrupt my grandmother when she is praying. It didn't matter. If you were choking, you better figure out, you better learn how to do the Heimlich quick. It didn't matter what was going on. I never, ever, and the crazy part about it is that I don't ever remember my grandmother discussing that with us. She never sat us down. As many kids, grandkids were in there, she never said, okay, don't disrupt me when I'm praying. We, for whatever reason, knew. I don't know if it was just this,
self-preservation.
Yeah, it was self-preservation. Yeah. We just knew that if we made a peep, if we acted crazy, that we were going to die. As soon as she rose up, it was bad. We were going to miss a limb. Yeah. So, I just remember, and I would watch her. She didn't make any sound, like she wasn't praying out loud, but I could just tell whatever was going on, it was serious. Yeah. It was serious, and I also knew that whatever was going on outside of my grandmother praying could wait. Nothing was going to disrupt her, and she was she was just very respectful to that and very committed. I don't remember my grandmother never not doing it. That was her. We knew. My grandma came out of boom. It was there. That was the next step. There was nothing else. It was wake up, God, and then we're doing what we got to do. Right. And but yeah, and that was it. I grew up with majority of the Mexican side of my family because for obvious reasons. My dad's family is in Chicago and other states as well. And so it was a lot of Mexican culture. I know Bishop ain't gonna say it, but I'll say it. He makes fun of me a lot because of it. That's okay. It's all in love. And my friends do. Tisa and Crystal, they make fun of me because of it too. It's all right. And so I never really knew. There was just never a label put on it. I think as I got older, I remember being in school and someone said, "Oh, your dad's black." And I was like, "Yeah." but it really wasn't a thing. For me, it wasn't of any importance.
Right.
It didn't change.
It was what it was.
Right? My world didn't come crumbling down. I never felt like I didn't. Even though I went to a school that was literally predominantly Mexican, I never felt like I didn't fit in. And only because, just like in the African American culture, there's different shades of to us.
Right.
Same thing in the Mexican culture. There's different shades to us too. So I was with people who looked like me, and so I didn't feel out of place.
Right.
And I honestly, again, just never remembered even discussing that. Those were not issues. I mean, those were issues of the world, but they were not in my home, and they weren't a part of me socially.
Wow. Bishop Presents Kingdom Builders continues. Monica Nichols shares her life as a wife, a mother, and bringing up her children in this world. Don't go away. Nichols continues right after this. Now let's talk about you as a mother, now raising children. Let's talk about you as a mother, as a wife, and how you and your husband are raising your children. Obviously, gonna be different how you was raised.
Right.
But let's start with your marriage and your children, and talk about them.
Well, starting with my marriage, to be perfectly honest, I think I always knew I wanted to be married. For those people that know me, I used to get made fun of it growing up, because I would always be in relationships. I would act like I'm married. They'd be like, "You act like you're married." That's just what I wanted. I was never that type of female that had very short relationships with males. If I was gonna date, we were dating. We were in it for the long haul, type thing. And to be honest with you, I was just modeling. I wanted to model what I was raised with. My parents are in my family, the only two people that are still married. So they've been married a long time. So I wanted to model that. I met Diamond in high school. We never dated. He stole a kiss in the elevator, but he never, while I was in a relationship with someone else.
Wow.
I know, right now I'm putting all my stuff on blast. So now it's out. It's out for everyone to
Forgive him.
Forgive him, please. Forgive him. Yes. And but anyways, I did not resist the kiss, by the way. So if anybody's wondering,
You were complicit.
I was complicit in the kiss. Yes. And but anyways, I met him in high school in our world geography class, and again, we just stayed close. We always had it was always a very sweet, positive, innocent relationship. I remember, to be honest with you, Diamond was at Boysville. So I didn't really know what that was, nor did I care. And I remember Diamond always telling me that I was always so nice to him, so sweet to him. I think a lot of times we judge and we have these preconceived notions of children that grow up under certain circumstances, and we tend to kind of make our own judgment when they are completely void and innocent of the circumstances that put them there. These were just choices of adults. And again, because of the way I grew up, I just was, hey, this is just a friend, type thing. So I went off to college, to Texas Lutheran University, and went on my own way and dated another guy. Once again, the intent was to get married, the whole nine type thing. That did not work out. And here I was, I was single again. A mutual friend of me and Diamond did one of those things. He kind of reunited us in a very strange way. He told me to call Diamond. It was like one of those things, like a bet. I said I wasn't going to do it. I did it, and that was it. I was stuck with him ever since. And I remember coming back into contact with Diamond, and it was, I felt comfortable, obviously. We didn't do a lot of that, what would you call it, that dancing around or you're trying to impress, because we already knew. I mean, it was kind of like, okay, well, I know. I didn't know everything, obviously, but I already, kind of had, I went to school with them. What are you going to say? And so there we were. We got married quickly. We had a child quickly, Ileana, our firstborn. I think that, and I think Diamond would agree, to be honest, I feel like our take on what a marriage was more of what you would call, more like what you would call like a fairy tale, like what you're raised with these stories of, okay, so you get married and live happily that's right, and you live happily ever after, and you have a whole bunch of kids, and yay, type thing. And it's not yay. It's not like that. Right. Because you go through things. Now that me and Diamond have recommitted ourselves to the Lord, and we have a true understanding of what marriage really is, you kind of get turned on your head. God kind of does that. And he breaks down all the stuff, that worldly stuff, that fairy tale, the picket fence, and he brings it on down, because and shows you that it's greater than the picket fence. It's beyond the picket fence. It's about the kingdom, and it's about representing him. And really, I feel like we conformed to that box that the world unfortunately makes it seem that like that's how it is. Again, my parents were going back to my parents, they were the only two married couple in my family, and that's all I had to go off of. And now that I see and I look back, I'm like, not everything wasn't perfect either. Right. You only can do with what you got, and you pull from, and you try to. But I think, unfortunately, the mistake, just speaking for myself, that I was making is that I was pulling from watching my parents instead of pulling from a foundation of what God wanted me to do, or how he designed it. And which can set you up for failure in certain areas. And if you don't get back on track, you can totally lead to divorce, and to you making a terrible decision. So yeah. And of course, we've been married 12 years.
Talk about the other two kids, Diamond and Tati.
Oh, I'm getting there. Okay. We've been married 12 years. Yeah, we've been married 12 years. Okay, yeah, so we have Ileana. And then, of course, here came baby Diamond. And we have our beautiful daughter, Tatiana. There was actually a child between Diamond and Tatiana. I feel very weird because a lot of people don't know this. I mean, certain people close to me know this, but it's a part of my story. And I miscarried. There was a miscarriage at 5 months. So we had this void. Like, to be honest, me and I didn't really know what to do. It was one of those things where you're so hurt and you kind of push away from each other, and you don't really know what to do with it. We were definitely not going to God about it. We were definitely just leaning on whatever strength we had. And for all those who have tried to do it, it's not going to work, because you have limits and God doesn't. So, and when you put that on yourself and you think that, yeah, I'm just going to carry it, it's very destructive, and it'll start tearing at other areas as well. And so, but the blessing and that came out of that is that we decided to try again, and we have our beautiful daughter Tatiana. I always describe her as she's 2 in 1, because she's just a lot in a great way. I feel like the Lord gave us back everything that we lost, but then some, but more. So, so we, now as parents, Diamond, I feel like Diamond always was raised, exposed to a lot of things, whether it was negative or positive, where I was always kept in this bubble. And as I got older, I saw how that it hurt me more than it helped me at times in my life, because here I was an adult, and things were shocking to me, and I would get overly emotional about things and allow my emotions to drive my response to it. When had I been exposed to, or had it been talked about in my home, I think I would have handled it better, made better decisions about things, whether it be my marriage, society, just anything. And so now with our kids, we just try to be as upfront and honest as possible without stealing their childhood. I do feel that there are just certain things that it's your tact. It's how you address it with them, so that they're aware, at least that they have some type of awareness, like what's going on, that they're not in this like false fairy tale land. We just try to be and involved. Yeah. My parents were very involved in everything that I did, and so I try to, again, have that same practice, be very involved in what they do. And of course, most importantly, that they have a better rooted foundation in God, so that they can make better decisions, and that can be passed down as well, because I feel like that's being lost.
Amen. Yeah. That's right.
So, yeah.
So what would you tell, obviously you've been married now 12 plus years. Mm-hmm. What would you tell what would inspiration or hope you give a couple right now who may be struggling right now? Because we've all been through struggles in our marriage and individual. What encouragement would you give a couple right now that may be thinking about turning away from God, or not even coming to God, or just giving up on their marriage and moving on?
Well, just from experience, I would say this, that you on this particular issue, if you ever come to a place where you feel like giving up, you have to stand there and look beyond yourself. I think that the times when I felt like giving up, I was doing it out of selfishness, and I was doing it out of because I just wanted a release and a relief. But the thing is that what you have to do is that you have to understand that is not, it's going to be a temporary thing. And you're really actually going to be worse off than where you're at. So if you think that is the worst thing, It's not. And I would honestly tell them to dig deeper within themselves. And in doing that, put themselves aside. Whether you have children involved or not, you have to look ahead of yourself, in that if I make this decision this time next year, or whatever, a month later, things, and you have to have that hope of things may or can get better. But you will never know if you stop. And I think that's what we forget, is that you won't know. So you have to make a choice. Am I going to go through it, or am I going to stop here and stay in this hole and not do anything? Because even in still not doing anything is still making a decision, as we all know. And I really had to dig deep and do something, move forward, whether I wanted to or not. I don't even know if that makes sense, because a lot of times I feel, to be honest with you, that what we physically are doing and what we're mentally doing and what we're spiritually doing it's so chaotic that you're spread everywhere. But sometimes, even if you don't want to get up and get out of bed and face it, you have to will yourself to do it. Only because the reality is the world is not going to stop. You're still going to have to go to work. If you have kids involved, the kids are still going to be, need to be taken care of. And you need to be taken care of as well. And I think that, again, I would tell them to not give up. First of all, and foremost, trust in God, seek Him completely, and just be dedicated to doing that. Be dedicated to listening to Him, because I feel like I'm a walking and living testimony to following that. You really have to put yourself down. Yeah. You got to like dead down. Yeah. And it's hard. It's ugly. You don't want to do it. You almost feel like you're fighting yourself. Because you're almost fighting for survival. Because putting yourself down, all the way down, so that God can work, is not what society tells you to do. Society tells you first. Yeah, you feel good, Monica. Make sure you feel good. Make sure you come out on top. Right. And when that's what God wants for us, but we got to do it a different way. And and we can't be a slave to our emotions. And that's what I would say. I would say just put yourself down.
Monica Nichols closed out our conversation talking about her life work, her vision, her mission for the kingdom of God. Stay right with us. You don't want to miss it. Nichols finishes up. We'll be right back. You're listening to Bishop Presents Kingdom Builders. Close. I want you to talk about your life work. What do you believe, you and your family believe, as far as what is God telling you that your life mission is, and what you want to achieve in your life, and what legacy you want to leave behind, not for your family but for Him? and living for Him and serving Him and working, working with God and for God, what do you want your life? Because I hear you talking about your grandmother, what she meant to you, and the legacy she left behind of her prayer life and her commitment to God, her service to the church, and her dedication to the altar. What does Monica Nichols want to leave? What legacy you want to leave behind on this earth for the kingdom?
I would definitely say, and I say this often, I've always said this, that I hear God the loudest when I am with people, when I'm actually physically out there doing and helping somebody. And that's not to say that I don't get filled up when I'm in church and fellowshipping. But I cannot describe it. It is almost like an itch that I need to scratch. Is that you always be dedicated and committed to helping others. I think that is my big legacy that I want to leave to my kids, in that there's no way that we're gonna make it, or we're gonna, and I feel like we are so beautifully and wonderfully made, and we have all these talents, and it's great, and all this stuff that Lord has poured into us. But when we keep it to ourselves, I feel like we are disrespecting God, because it wasn't meant to be kept. I don't believe that, because when I pour it out and pour it into someone, I get so filled up, and I'm not getting anything in return. They're not giving me anything. When I pour it out, that's all I want to do. And I get so fired up. I get so lifted up. It is just amazing. It's like a high. Like I've never been high, by the way. Just putting it out there. I've never taken drugs. But my point is that I hear him. I feel the closest, because, everyone just wants to be loved and treated with respect. And when you get down with them and you look at someone eye to eye and you're close to them and you listen or you help them to do something, it's a spiritual connection. You may never see that person again. They may never come back and say thank you. You may not even see the fruits of it, but I always walk away with having that feeling that I know that seed that I put in there is going to grow, because it came from God. That's not a Monica seed. That's a God seed. And I've never felt, I've always felt like that will grow. That will be passed on. Now, when Monica doing her stuff and it's coming selfishly from Monica, you don't really get that feeling from it, because it has its limit. But that will get passed on. They will then in turn turn around and plant a seed into someone else. And so that is why I make sure, me and both Diamond make sure that when we are doing stuff in the community, our children are right with us doing stuff in the community, so that it's not just something that we are preaching about in the home. It is something that they see in action. Because let's keep it real. They watching you. And that's really what they're going to do anyway. Right. They're going to model what they see anyway, right, because your words are just that, words. That's really what it would be. My legacy would be to always help others, always be there, like we always say in Church Bishop, for the least, for the least among us, and for your neighbor, for your sister and brother, just because you never know whether it's just an ear. It doesn't even have to be something that you're physically doing with them, but listening to them and walking through it with them. Because just even in the line of work that I do, I'm an educator, and a lot of times you'd be surprised how many students, they want to give up. to give up. They have said that they've wanted to commit suicide. They've tried to commit suicide. And it's crazy because on this end, you're like, but you're so special. And if I feel like there's, oh, God, for sure, of course, they're special to God. But you're like, I would be devastated if you did that, if you made that choice. So you know what I mean? You want to be that person that's there when no one else is there. And it's heavy. Yeah. It weighs on you because you're always like, well, did I say the right thing? Did I tell them the right thing? Are they going to, at the end of the day, it'll be their ultimate choice. But sometimes there's nobody there. And you're called, I feel, for the kingdom to be that someone when it's not the best, hour for you. You know what I mean? When someone's calling you at 4:00 in the morning and it's not convenient. And I think that's for the kingdom, that's what it takes, is that when it's out of your comfort zone, your convenience, not wrapped up how you want it, because people are going to come to you in different conditions and stuff like that. They may need touch. They may need a hug. They may need all those things. And so I feel like you've got to be that person. That's it. You be that person.
Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. Of my kingdom there is no end. Thank you for listening to Bishop Presents Kingdom Builders, a bi-weekly podcast, a grace, fire, and love show. Remember, God's elect, to always be about the Father's business, building the kingdom of God. Yeah.